Welcome to the Cyber Resilience Brief, a SafeBreach podcast, where we dissect the latest cybersecurity threats and explore the strategies that build true resilience. I'm your host, Tova Dvorin.
And I'm Adrian Culley, an offensive security engineer here at SafeBreach.
Adrian, today we are tackling something that's been lighting up security channels all week, a brazen, defiant, and frankly shocking statement from the threat group known as Scattered Spider, also known as Scattered Lapsus and ShinyHunters. This wasn't a quiet ransom note, this was a global press release.
It was a declaration of war, Tova, and released on both some Telegram channels and on a bit of the dark web accessible by the Onion router. I won't say the actual address here. They've dropped all pretense of operating in the shadows. This statement is a masterclass in psychological operations. They're not just extorting companies, they're trying to shape global cybersecurity policy through intimidation.
Let's break it down. For those who haven't seen it, the group explicitly threatens to endlessly attack countries like Australia for its policy of not paying ransoms. They name the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and France as primary targets. What's the immediate takeaway for a CISO reading this?
The immediate takeaway is the game has changed. These actors see themselves not as criminals, but as a rival superpower. They mock the FBI, they belittle top tier cybersecurity firms like Mandiant by name, and they threaten specific corporations like Salesforce with destructive campaigns. They, whether it's ego or correct, and I have to stress that you're all very aware how very difficult attribution is, and there is an active investigation into Jaguar Land Rover, which I'm about to talk about, led by the GCHQ's National Cybersecurity Centre, who I'm aware their leading hypothesis is it's actually Russia that's behind this attack. Now, it's very interesting that Scattered Spider are associating themselves with the Jaguar Land Rover attack, particularly the Google Cloud, which de facto means they're associating themselves with the Russian FSB. They reference their attack on Jaguar Land Rover, which shut down production lines, as a baseline for what they can do. This isn't just about data theft anymore, it's about operational annihilation.
They also have this very strange framing where they reject the label terrorists and call themselves businessmen. What's the purpose of that language?
It's a calculated move to normalise their actions. By framing extortion as a business negotiation, they attempt to shift the moral calculus for their victims. They're saying, don't make this a fight against evil, make it a business decision. Pay us and the problem goes away. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Where do we think that money goes to? Which is the problem with paying any ransom in any circumstance. It goes to terrorism and organised crime. It's a chilling, effective way to disarm a company's will to fight back.
Right, and this is also on brand for hackers. As we saw before when we interviewed Eden Piquant, who went on the dark web to talk to hacking groups, they're very well organized and they see themselves as a semi-legitimate business operation. So this should not be surprising for those who are following the hacking underground. That being said, the fact that they're so public is such a bold move. And they don't stop at corporations. The taunts are aimed at law enforcement and they're on another level. They call the FBI mediocre and they dismiss the seizure of breach forums as a pointless exercise.
That's pure bravado, but it has a purpose. I mean, but again, we must caveat that there's more than a whiff of propaganda about this, and it's great getting access to dark forums and the Onion router and closed Telegram channels. However, these people do tell lies, and intelligence agencies in particular are trained to tell lies. They're very good at telling lies, but it projects an image of invincibility. For a security team already feeling overwhelmed, reading that the FBI can't stop these guys can be incredibly demoralizing. It's designed to create a sense of helplessness, pushing victims towards the conclusion that compliance is the only viable option.
And what about this bizarre claim that they were appointed by President Donald J. Trump and Elon Musk head of Doge? That part felt like it came from either a novel or a different planet.
Right, that's the chaos agent persona, the Lapsus DNA shining through. It serves two functions. First, it's a classic trolling tactic to muddy the waters and generate headlines. Second, it acts as a cultural shibboleth, appealing to a specific subset of the cybercriminal underground that thrives on anti-establishment rhetoric and absurdity. It's a distraction, but it also helps build their brand. And we have to stress here, we've mentioned Scattered Lapsus, Scattered Spider. These are broader affiliated hacking groups under the banner of the com. And I stress again, attribution is not straightforward.
So we have a threat actor that is part sophisticated extortionist, part public relations machine, and part internet troll. It's the trifecta of evil. For businesses, this threat feels like less like a technical problem and more like a force of nature.
Exactly, and that's why the old ways of thinking about security, patching vulnerabilities and running antivirus, are no longer sufficient. Scattered Spider's primary attack vector isn't a zero-day exploit, it's your employees. They are masters of social engineering, identity theft, and multi-factor authentication fatigue. They find one employee with weak credentials, and from there they live off the land until they own your entire network.
Thanks, Adrian. Before we quickly transition into what we can do to defend ourselves, are we able to give our listeners slightly more context on scattered Lapsus and shiny hunters? Because we've spoken about scattered spider before. The other two, I think we've only referenced here and there.
Absolutely. So these are very busy, very active hacking groups. They've been responsible for literally hundreds of millions, both in ransomware payments, but also operational losses. They're affiliated and attached to the high-profile attacks against manufacturing, against, for example, the Co-op Bank in the UK, the Marks and Spencers attack in the UK, several attacks in the USA. The waters are somewhat muddied, but the effects of their actions are very, very clear.
Okay, thank you for that context, Adrian. Given this reality where a threat actor can publicly declare their intentions and still succeed, how can organizations possibly defend themselves? This statement makes it sound futile.
So it's not futile, but I understand people feeling that way. It requires a fundamental shift from a defensive reactive posture to a proactive adversarial one. You can't wait to see if your walls are high enough. You need to be testing them relentlessly from the inside and out. This is precisely where breach and attack simulation, or BAS, becomes critical.
Okay, so how does BAS work in the context of a threat like Scattered Spider?
Think of it this way: Scattered Spider has publicly listed their playbook. They've told you how they operate. A breach and attack simulation platform like SafeBreach takes that playbook and runs it safely against your environment 24/7. We're not talking about a theoretical check, we're not talking about anything synthetic. We're running the actual tactics, techniques, and procedures, the TTPs that these groups use. For instance, we know that Scattered Spider uses social engineering to gain initial access and abuses identity management systems like Okta. With a BAS platform, you continuously simulate credential stuffing attacks against your login portals, multi-factor authentication, push notifications, spanning to test your employees' resilience to fatigue attacks, phishing simulations that mimic their exact lures, and crucially, lateral movement techniques they use once they're inside. The BAS platform tells you immediately this control failed, or this pathway, attack pathway validation to your crown jewels is wide open. You're not guessing about your security posture, you're measuring it against the real threat.
Okay, so what you're saying is that BAS validates your individual security tools are working as expected. But Scattered Spider's threat, like the Jaguar Land Rover case, is about chaining exploits together to achieve a major business disrupting outcome all at once. How do you prepare for that scenario?
So again, great point, Tova. That's the next level of maturity, and it's where we segue into continuous automated red teaming, or CART, where BAS tests individual controls. CART tests the entire attack path. A CART exercise answers the CISO's ultimate question: can an attacker, starting with zero access, reach our most critical assets and disrupt our business? A CART platform will automatically and continuously mimic the entire attack chain. It will start with an assumed breach, perhaps a stolen credential, and then attempt to escalate privileges, move laterally through the network, and reach a predefined crown jewel target, like a production line control system, a customer database, or the domain controller. It maps out every possible attack path an adversary could take.
So, in the Jaguar Land Rover scenario, a CART exercise could have shown them the exact path from a compromised employee account all the way to the systems controlling their manufacturing floor.
Precisely. I do have to add in at this point, it's the Jaguar Land Rover situation is complicated because they outsourced their IT to Tata in India. So whilst the physical effect is in the UK, it is possible that a significant part of the hacking actually took place in India. But we need to move the conversation from "are we vulnerable" to "how vulnerable are we, and what are the most critical weaknesses we must fix right now to break the attack chain." It allows you to prioritize remediation based on business impact, not just a long list of CVEs. It's about building resilience against an entire campaign, not just a single technique.
So, to counter scattered spires' claims that resistance is futile, the counter message for security leaders is one of continuous evidence based validation or constant vigilance.
Absolutely. Don't operate on hope. Hope is not a strategy. Don't assume your defences work. Prove it. Use BAS to validate your controls and CART to understand your exposure to complex attack paths. These actors thrive on uncertainty and fear. The best defence is empirical data that shows you where you are strong and, much more importantly, where you need to improve before they come knocking.
Um, a strong message of empowerment in face of a very daunting threat. Adrian, thank you for breaking this down for us.
My pleasure, Tova.
That's all the time we have for today on the Cyber Resilience Brief. Join us next time as we continue to explore the front lines of cybersecurity. Stay safe with SafeBreach. The Cyber Resilience Brief is a SafeBreach podcast, executive produced by Tova Dvorin and Adrian Culley. Sound provided by Adobe Music. Editing done with Adobe Podcasts. Distribution and tracking provided by Podbean. If you enjoy the podcast and would like to learn more, please check us out at www.safebreach.com. SafeBreach.com. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.